Hello to all of you who have joined us today in person here at the Karuk Museum for our final
Saturday Speaker of the Year. Before we proceed, I just wanted to give a big shout out to our live streamer, Jay Tillman, who has been out here every single time this year to have these recordings available for the future. So let's give Jay a big round of applause. The board and the staff at the Karuk Museum would like to thank all of you for taking time out of your busy lives to take part in this opportunity. One thing to note, I'm happy to announce that next year, the Karuk will be partnering with the Humboldt County Historical Society for a continuation of this speaker series. It is now my pleasure and honor to introduce two incredibly informative speakers on this day. First of whom is Mr. Ron Reed. Ron is a traditional Karuk dipnet fisherman, spiritual leader, and important public figure for the Karuk Tribe. Mr. Reed comes from a long and prominent family of traditional spiritual leaders and cultural practitioners, and is the father of 6 children. In his capacity as the Karuk Tribe's cultural biologist, Ron has been an important tribal spokesperson who has communicated the cultural and health impacts of current river and forest mismanagement to audiences around the world. And he works at home to restore Karuk culture and society through reconnecting people, especially tribal youth, to the natural world. His work has been featured in prominent news outlets around the world, including National Geographic, National Public Radio, High Country News, and many more. Mr. Reed is a co-founder of the Karuk UC Berkeley Collaborative, and he has served as a member of the Forest Research Advisory Committee of the USDA, which reports directly to the Secretary of Agriculture. A member of the Environmental Justice Task Force of the California Environmental Protection Agency, and was one of half a dozen delegates from California to be the first U.S. Social Forum in Atlanta. Ron has a long history of close collaboration with researchers at Stanford, UC Berkeley, and University of Oregon, and has co-authored over a dozen articles and book chapters, as well as co-supervised graduate and undergraduate theses. Next up, we have Dr. Kari Norgaard. Dr. Kari is a professor of sociology and environmental studies at University of Oregon. She has served as a consultant for the Karuk Tribe since 2003 and has chaired the environmental sociology section of the American Sociological Association from 2018 through 2019. Norgaard is the author of Living in Denial, Climate Change, Emotions, and Everyday Life, and most recently, Salmon and Acorns Feed Our People, Colonialism, Nature, and Social Action, as well as dozens of other articles. Dr. Norgaard has received the Fred Buttle Distinguished Contribution Award, Environmental Sociology section of American Sociological Association, and the Pacific Sociological Association's Distinguished Practice Award. Ron and Kari have been working closely together since 2003, conducting policy-relevant research on tribal health and social impacts of environmental decline. In 2004, their report, The Effects of Altered Diet on the Karuk Tribe, was submitted to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission as part of the opposition to the relicensing of the Klamath River dams. Their action represented the first time a tribe has claimed that a dam had given their people an artificially high rate of diabetes and other diet-related disease. Since that time, Ron and Kari have continued to work on policy-driven research projects, including work that established tribal cultural and tribal subsistence beneficial uses in the TMDL water quality process in California for the first time. Together they have co-authored multiple articles and book chapters and co-supervised over a dozen undergraduate theses. Without further ado, I turn you over to Ron Reed and Kari Norgaard for their Fire, Food, and Future presentation. They will provide insight into the importance of fire for Karuk tribal culture, health, food, and sovereignty. They describe the history of settler colonial fire suppression practices and its ongoing impacts on Indigenous communities today. Let's give them a vote. Will be for live stream.
sorry for the confusion on all the technology here, and thanks for coming out on a rainy afternoon on this stormy day.
Ron and I are always sort of back and forth about who's going to start and how we're going to do this, and Josh asked Ron, so he was polite, and now I'm the one speaking to you first. Really, my name's Kari Norgaard, and really it's an honor to be here, and thank you very much for having us at the museum, and for all the work that's here, and for those of you that are watching. And I also want to acknowledge that we are speaking on Wiyot land and in the Clark Museum, which is a powerful place, and really appreciate the work you're doing towards bringing Indigenous voices and perspectives current day. So I think we sort of go back and forth a bit how we, what we say, or sort of how we do this in different contexts. And we spoke on the phone yesterday for a while about kind of what will be said, and it's always with us a bit of an ongoing sort of back and forth in the moment. But Ron gave us the title of Food, Fire, and Future. And I think we'll start by sharing a little bit of many achievements that have happened, and talk a little bit about how that shaped our work, and then talk about work and things that need to be done. So the two of us have been working together. It'll be 20 years next year, and it's changed my life fundamentally. I often say it's changed not only my life, my career, everything about my life, but the lives of 3 generations in my family. And so it's really incredible to be standing next to you here and have Robin and Ronnie in the audience. And I think that there's so many things that we could say or will speak about, but really at the heart of what has worked about who each of us are and how we've worked together has been a particular kind of magic or power synergy that's come from the blending of each of our backgrounds with Indigenous science and Western science. Do you want me to keep going for a minute, or?
Yeah. Thank you so much for having us and providing this platform for this particular perspective, because, fire, food, future, it's pretty obvious. I like to overstate the obvious, but fire is a giver and taker of life. Fire is used in our ceremonies for prayer, used to cook, used for warmth. Fire is our teacher, is our guide. The intergenerational knowledge that is transferred just by the use of fire will provide longevity in the culture that we live. Those things were erased in a colonized modern society, but we are here, we've always been here, and we're going to continue to be here. So we're making the best of what we have, and this is the best of what we have today. So thank you for having us, and take her away, Kari.
So I wanted to also just acknowledge that there's many people that I've personally worked with and that have been a part of, for sure, the work in the Klamath Basin for a long time. These are some of the many people in Karuk Tribe, not even all. But just wanted to acknowledge that myself, I've been learning from many, many people and continue to do so. Just thinking like a little bit of overview. There's been many major accomplishments in the basin, and I know for myself, doing this work has, it's been 19 years since I've been involved, and it's completely the terrain of what people understand, what's talked about, what's expected has really, really changed in so many different ways. So we'll say some words about that work. And there's also a lot of work that's still to be done. And so that'll kind of, I think, be the scaffolding for our words to you today.
Going back to that last, to say that, a lot of the things that bring us here to the table today is the work that we did in the dam removal process called denied access to traditional foods. And that was just a part of the hydroelectric license to the dam removal, and I believe that was the first time that federal management and state management and key stakeholders really heard Indigenous science and looked at it as a science. I think we was in the threshold of anecdotal information to Indigenous science at that time. Traditional ecological knowledge was something that was derived at that point in time. I'm not sure where, but I know that also the irrigators in the Upper Basin grabbed a hold of that. We have traditional ecological knowledge, and they do. So that was maybe one of the shared moments at that point in time, because we need them to be able to manage their land properly while everybody else has their responsibility to manage their land property, so the function, so it allows it to function properly throughout time. Those are just the things that we're using Indigenous knowledge, Indigenous interconnectivity to reestablish. And without denied access to traditional foods by those dams, a lot of the things we talk about today is kind of irrelevant. You know, it has been irrelevant to the management of our natural resources over time. It's just now being acknowledged that community is involved in natural resource management. And we've been doing it for thousands of years. So that's part of the erasure that has happened. And it hasn't been extinguished. We have a lot of people in our society today that can contribute to the work that is being done about Indigenous science, Western science, bridging that gap of these two knowledge institutions to be able to manage for the future. And when we talk about manage for the future, we have to talk about our youth. We have to talk about the people that we have put the brunt of management on their shoulders at a very tender age. We need to reestablish their relevance in the world, the woman's relevance in the world, the matriarchal society of step upon step upon step, not erasure. Those are a lot of the things that are established in our Indigenous identity but have been erased. This is the type of academic work that will not only reestablish a process, but reactivate the people that are connected directly to that process through ceremony, through Indigenous belief systems that is called place-based management.
So folks have heard that it's very exciting. Just, I don't know, it's been a week and a half now, but Thursday of last week, FERC ruled around dam decommissioning or dam removal to transfer the dams. And that, as my understanding, is the last regulatory hurdle that was needed for this to begin happening. And a really big deal. And that is the work that brought us together. And so that is the work that has, fundamentally, we'll talk a little bit about that work, and I'll talk about how it's impacted me professionally at the university outside of this work we do. And
yeah, I just think that when we was talking about all of our accomplishments, and it takes us way back, and and the dam removal part of it is really important, because that's where that's where I kind of began my my career. I just lost my train of thought, but yeah.
We have different
go.
modes
Let's
of being.
go.
Do you want to say something about Ronnie Pierce or the FERC?
I'm going to get warmed up here in a minute, but I'll just say that looking at Ronnie Pierce, this very special lady, very special warrior. She taught me a lot. Probably some of the most difficult times of my life, she was there for me. Spiritually as well as technically. I think that she has a lot to do with being able to put the Indigenous passion I have today into the work I do. I think it's very simple, and I'll share it with the rest of the world, is that she told me at one point in time when I was having a very tough time with talking to these managers, she told me that anything that interrupts your culture, your lifestyle, by way of your ceremonies, the federal government and the state government has to answer to you. I'm still riding on that wave. I'm going to ride on that until I can't ride it no more. Because, you know, those are the things that I'm affected by. Fire is affected by. Food is affected by. The future is affected by. It is my inherent responsibility to reestablish the Indigenous connection to natural resource management by way of ceremony. A lot of the things we use in management forums is to promote the agenda that we all get there by a different path. For the first time since contact, all of the sovereign nations can see that path very clearly because it's connected directly to our world renewal ideology. Without my family, human family, I cannot practice world renewal. Without my community, I cannot practice world renewal. Without the relations, the non-human relations that allow us to practice our world renewal, if we are not managing competently for those resources, we're not doing our job. The work we do through denied access, the academic work provides a platform for Indigenous knowledge. It provides a platform for the things I was taught. The thing I was taught was that you learn the words, you learn the things at world renewal ceremonies, Pikiawish. You learn the things at Pikiawish because those are the closest things to truth on earth. Fire is that teacher. The spiritual relation to the heavens. The management prescription from the spirits allow the people on earth to manage for life over time. Place-based management, faith-based management is the only way out of climate change. Dam removal will get salmon back. Cultural fire will get our resources, will get management back into a threshold of survivability, of sustainability. This isn't the first extinction period that we've been through. We know how to manage through these eras if allowed. We're reestablishing that ability through the work we do. Very important.
So that work from where we started working together came when this was the final license application that was submitted by Pacificor after Ron had been speaking for
1 month, 1 week, every month for 5 years.
And it contained none of that information. So, you know, folks know what it's like in Orleans, Spar, how far it is to get out to where these meetings are happening on roads like today with winter conditions and taking time away from family. And so this is when Ron spoke a minute ago about sort of the beginning of the recognition of the concept of traditional ecological knowledge. It was not being, his knowledge was not being recognized. And that's really the context of where, when we started working together, and it shouldn't have taken someone with a PhD to have that happen, but it is also good that when we started working together, we started getting a lot more traction. And yeah, it's essentially, there's a couple
Denied
of slides.
access, traditional foods. You know, I think that's basically what it was. You know, when we started digging into the files, we started doing interviews with people that we all wanted food. We didn't have access to them anymore. And, diabetes, we start talking to our people about our health. And diabetes was non-existent before the 70s or the 60s or so. I can't remember exactly.
The 50s, yeah.
But, all these different things are kind of coming to light. And, and then the mental health of our people just kind of like connected to, the boarding school era, the forced assimilation, I mean, this is kind of we had to reestablish where we were at in America, all the different atrocities that happened to us, you know, with the formation, you know, first of all, of California, and then, you know, the Forest Service. Actually, you know, in the early 1900s, they was, you know, had bounties on our scalps. You know, the federal government provided money to California to hunt us down, you know, and so we had a very tough run at it, but because of our remote location, we weren't really accessed until 1850. We still have a lot of our indigenous perspective alive and well. Just about bringing them all back together, and academia really seems to be my helper right now.
So we, you know, we started working together, put together this report, which just was, as Ron said, you know, looked at the relationships of diabetes and the emergence of diabetes along the loss of salmon and other traditional foods. And basically, Karuk became the first tribe that had ever claimed that dams were giving their people artificially high rates of diabetes. And this was, you know, this was Ron. This is what Ron had been saying before as well in all of those other meetings, but until it was framed that way.
Iron Gate Dam was born in the early 60s, right about the same time I was. It's a secret nemesis of mine. I used to be tired of fishing, cleaning, clubbing, packing fish from my elders, the dippers at that time, by Labor Day. We was done fishing by Labor Day, go back to school, and everything was fine. We don't even start catching fish until after Labor Day now. Iron Gate Dam closed off 8 miles of prolific spawning and rearing habitat for the spring Chinook salmon. Those are the salmon my people relied on in my lifetime, and it's all been extinguished in my lifetime as well. One of the things and one of my inherent responsibilities is to be able to provide a place or the things better or just as good or better than when I received them from the generation above me. So this will give me one step up on my inherent responsibility. Maybe the only one I really have is to be able to take those dams down and to be able to provide that spawning habitat, that rearing habitat, and that harvestable resource to all the people that depend on that resource up and down the river and wherever else they go.
So that report got a lot of publicity at the time. It was on the front page of the Washington Post and all across Times Standard, all papers, Chronicle papers across the West Coast as well. And so that was very exciting. And that was a first and probably one of the most exciting things we've done together. But we have continued to work together on a bunch of other projects that have involved in blending of Indigenous principles and Western science, including work on knowledge sovereignty, and most recently the Karuk Tribe's climate adaptation plan. I'll just say one or two more things about that, which is really innovative in a lot of ways, but one of which is it takes a lot of specific centering of Karuk principles around the use of fire and the importance of smoke, for example, for cooling river temperatures, and puts them in very clear through the use of illustrations and other mechanisms. And that's, I think, one of the things that's really exciting about that climate plan is it's very forward-thinking and very much about using the opportunity of climate change to revitalize, as a lever for revitalizing cultural practices, and that's work that's come specifically.
Yeah, I think in 2001 when the FERC hydroelectric relicensing process actually started, and I was on the Klamath River Fisheries Basin Task Force. And at that time, we was talking about dam removal, which was something very far-fetched. I was advocating, well, we're going to start doing prescribed fire along the mid-Klamath because that's our transport reach. From the prolific, the best spawning and rearing habitat in North America and the Upper Basin needed to have a transportation reach out to the ocean, and that was the mid-Klamath. Right now, because of those dams, the mid-Klamath is the spawning grounds. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, the Karuk people are not the people of the spawning grounds. We're the transport reach, okay? Fire, we carry fire. We carry medicine connected to ceremonies. all our resources are connected to that. So when that process started in 2001, that was just the beginning of the resurgence of Indigenous knowledge finding its way back through the use of fire or the concept of fire. But right now, because of fire suppression, fire is being very much utilized in the mid-Klamath River Basin to be able to not provide transportation reach out to the ocean, but to provide safety to the human beings that inhabit the forest. So we're still doing the same thing. Indigenous science is taking leadership in a lot of these different areas because we've been here before. You know, turbidity in the river from the dams coming out, the dams made it through the gold rush. Descriptions of the water during the gold rush during that time period, continuous description of chocolate-like water. So we have a chance to resurrect or to restore, revitalize not only the fish in the Klamath River Basin, but all the different things that are interconnected to that species.
I'm guessing there may be more questions about that too when we get to the Q&A, but I want to just share a couple slides of some of the way that this work that's still ongoing has changed my life as an academic researcher. And specifically, so I'm trained in sociology, but like many disciplines, anthropology, archaeology, where we are sitting in the museum, is one that also has had very problematic histories of relationships with Native people. My discipline has been one of those that really has seen Indigenous people as in very, sort of, drug addicted and, really showing negative parts of it without any context of colonialism. We do talk about racism in this country. We need to talk about it more, but we don't talk much yet about colonialism, and that conversation has been beginning. And so one of the things that, as a result of us working together, is together with other colleagues, we have founded Indigenous People section on sociology within the American Sociological Association. Ron and Robin have both, and Ronnie, have come up and spoke to my students, spoke at University of Oregon, speak to my environmental justice class and my colleagues there. This is a picture of starting the Indigenous People section within sociology. And then the book, which I think when Josh reached out, this is partially featured. This book has come out several years ago. It is, set in the Klamath Basin and set very much in our work. Really, it was meant as a speaking back to my colleagues in sociology about areas of the discipline that is not, that needs to change in my mind, including more attention to how settler colonialism affects social theory, more attention to how that shapes other aspects of work that's done in sociology. But it is a project that I originally wanted Ron to be co-author with on the book. We have in many of the other articles. It's copyright for the Karuk Tribe, which is a different, it was a trade-off there. We also have, as we were talking about working on the the Altered Diet project, Ron kept saying, this is a lot about masculinity, and it affects men in particular ways. And so that work became an article that we have back to my discipline about gender. And then similarly, he also was talking a lot about how it's not just physical health, it's also mental health. And so that article, and this one, we won an award from the emotions section about the emotional aspects of environmental justice and environmental degradation. So that's a little bit just about that part of how our relationship has shaped my academic work away from the Klamath River Basin. So moving sort of to the last part,
Yeah, I think just the, back that last slide, just the, that was a tremendous time. At the time we're catching maybe, I think at these meetings I was saying hey, we only caught 20 fish last year, or we only caught every year, and we only caught 50 fish last year, or no, we caught hundreds of fish last year, but before that, we're having them same little voids in our harvestable years. And not getting the nutrient value to the people who need it, the elders, the babies, the ceremonies, you're not teaching anymore. You're not teaching how to fillet. You're not teaching the values of what are connected from that salmon to the ceremonies. You're not teaching, that you go pray, you go do these things. One of the biggest things that modern society has taken from the indigenous communities is fire. And fire manages our resource. The number one rule of resource management is to enhance, preserve, or maintain before you earn a right to that resource. Once they took fire away from us, our teaching mechanisms were taken from us. The intergenerational challenge of articulating and showing the aspects of our culture, of our lifestyle, of our ceremonies was hampered dramatically to extinction proportions. So those are the things that associate with those dead fish along the bank. It's more than just the scenic value. It's the spirit of what makes life sustainable over time. The relationships that are bonded together through that life. Extinction is inevitable. We know this, I think, but it is our job as human beings, with the spirit that we was giving in the time of the immortals, of being able to take care of all the resources that make our lifestyle whole. That is my inherent responsibility, being a key participant in world renewal ceremonies of the Karuk Tribe up at Inam, as well as my family's. My family has a direct inherent responsibility to make sure that those ceremonies are taken seriously and maintained, preserved, and enhanced over time. Struggling to do that, hence, it's no surprise to me, the state of the management of the natural world today.
So there's been a lot more, there's been movement in terms of recognition of Indigenous use of fire or many other aspects of knowledge that Karuk and other people locally have in terms of the natural world, but not as much in terms of what the social knowledge is in terms of the things that you speak about of the connection to the fish and all of the social aspects of it. And so I remember talking in your backyard when you use the term, social management. There's, it's not just the traditional ecological knowledge, but there's Karuk social management. And so much of the work that we've been doing as well has been about, as you said, the importance of the family, the importance of intergenerational, these kinds of things.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing. The social management is basically what I just described, the intergenerational knowledge transfer. That's the mental health, the dilemma. A lot of the things I went through in my early parenthood was that, not having the ability to transfer that knowledge that connects us to the things that I know is the closest thing to truth on earth. There's a gap between me and my children. I can't continue on with my responsibility for that to happen. So this is the best way I have. I've been exposed to academia. Indigenous science has been managing these resources since time immemorial. And we do have a place for us again. And the next generation, teaching the next generation is so important. K through 12 curriculum development is one of the most important things to me today. Allowing our children to see the benefits of prescribed cultural fire, devastating wildland fire. Fire has been demonized for so long, it's just now coming out that Indigenous fire has a place in modern management. And there's a flurry to get there. The work that we have done allows for that path to be in our area, in our realm. So you can bet I'm taking full advantage of all the work we're doing today with fish, with our acorns, with our families, fire suppression, all these things. It's easy for me to talk about Indigenous science because that's our lifestyle. More importantly, that's my inherent responsibility.
I think these next ones are
Fire.
you.
Fire, this, I believe
That's Kathy
Kathy.
McCovey. You can tell.
You know, so I think what we're doing, we're seeing some people that are very much involved in fire. Unfortunately, for me, it's fire suppression. But that era is coming to an end. I have sons that work for fire suppression, but are transferring into fuels management, prescribed fire, fire generation collaborative, K through 12 curriculum development. That's what I have my next generation doing, things like that, to be able to restore this community, to allow our inherent responsibility to become alive. And our community members that have been doing their due diligence in fire, this is the era to get Indigenous fire back underground. That's our leadership. They are our leaders. Oh, there he is.
I don't know if you want to say anything about this.
You know, that's my son Ron right there, you know, but I think that he's doing his due diligence. You know, all my kids, they hear this, they know it, they feel it, and yet we're kind of like, we're meeting right here. We have very great ideas of what we're going to put here on earth to do, and in so many ways, it's all coming back to fire. It's amazing. It's just really how all the different work that I have done, it coincides with my family coming together as well. So it's this really amazing process that I think we learn more and more about Indigenous pathways the more we practice.
Thank you. And just, thinking about where, as Rana said, where solutions come from, people, in the basin as source of incredible amount of knowledge, and that a lot of that knowledge and work is, it's changed my life in terms of just seeing what a handful, of incredibly powerful, effective, smart, determined people are doing day to day in this part of the world and inland in Somes Bar, Orleans. It's really incredible. It's important as well, thinking about how we raise young people, and I don't know if this is a time we're going to put Robin on the spot. She's shaking her head. Spent a lot of time with her grandbabies lately.
I think it's a perfect time just to talk about matriarch society and how we continue on the effort that it was done by the people who walked before us. The young lady here, she did a lot for our basket weavers, a lot for putting fire back into the forest, and she did a lot of hard work, and well respected, and I'm pretty honored to have known her and learned by her, but I'm even more honored now that her daughter, Renee, is a council person up at Karuk Tribe, and I went by her house one day to talk, and she gave me her mother's ice chest. So I got Laverne Glaze's ice chest, God bless her soul, and I am using it very wisely, and I think that is a piece that makes me very proud. And in that respect, there's a lot of people that are not with us today that have provided that level of compassion, passion, energy, knowledge, and friendship, and love. Not only for the people they work with, but the people who they were going to impact, in their lives. And, My mother being one of those. A lot of people that I truly respect that have given up a lot for where we're at right now, and we can't forget about those people. And the way I look at it, I respect the people's knowledge that I have now, and a lot of that same knowledge I pass on to my children. So that not only holds on to the people's legacy that has taught me, but also holds on to my legacy as well. So this is the importance of relationship building, because without relationship building, all the science we have in the world, if you don't know what the Karuk people are doing, if you don't know what the Hupa, Yurok, Klamath Tribe, the Shasta, the Wiyot, all these different people, if you don't know what they're doing, then you're missing out. And, I think that as we move forward, just remember, Indigenous science was here first, and will be here last. Yoto.
Thank you. I think that's about our closing slide. Just thank you, and thanks to folks watching online. I don't know if there's questions and things, but it's really an honor to be with you here today, especially this is my first time in the Klamath Basin since the FERC ruling, so it's incredibly exciting to just be here and come full circle. And thanks everyone for being interested in the work we've been up to.
Thank you, Kari, and thanks, the Clark Museum for providing this, and I was really heartfelt seeing my relations around in this building as well, just knowing that, we are not only part of the past, but we're definitely part of the future. Yoto.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, my buddy.
You're Petey Brucker.
We have live mics still. I'm just now aware of one of my best friends in this world just coming into the room, and it's not always been an easy trail on the Indigenous side of things, and we always need every boost along the trail that we can get. And when I was on that Klamath River Basin Task Force Fisheries representing the Karuk Tribe, I had a good friend named Petey Brucker that was in the same room as well. I didn't know him at the time. I didn't know that he was going to become one of my best friends. But it was amazing for two different people from two different sides of the world come together, bring our passion and our knowledge and the spirit of our people together to make what we have now. The non-government organizations up on the Klamath River has done a tremendous effort in acknowledging Indigenous lifestyle and respected it wholeheartedly, utilizing our information to put in their management processes. Salmon River area is one of the most fire-prone areas in our region. And because of the gold rush, our people were annihilated and taken away out of that area. Fortunate for us, we had some people come in, move into that area, and became fire prone. They listened to the natives, and they had the sense of Western science to put protocols in place. They're fire leaders in our region and in the area. And when I first met Petey, had a conversation with him, what he's doing up on the Salmon River, him connecting, acknowledging Indigenous science from my background, he showed me what he was doing in the K-12 curriculum. He was putting the things that the people were relaying to him into Western science protocol. I looked at that over 20 years ago. That's what I need for my people. I'm still working on that today. Those are the things that are finding their way into the history, not only the history books, but into the management books as well. These relationships, you do not design them in the book or in the classroom. This is in the field due diligence. Lifestyles of people, of communities, acknowledging each other and loving one another as one, as a group. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Petey because of the fact that he is a non-native, he was an outsider, he doesn't totally know who we are, but he's able to translate what he does know about us to the greater part of the world to make a difference. My relationship with Petey is just as strong or stronger than my relationship with Kari or with any of the other colleagues that I've developed in the Klamath River Basin. Petey has been the closest person, non-Indigenous person, to connect to me as a real person. I want to thank you for that, Petey. Glad you can make it today. I know you're not doing real well. The fact that I see you here is the fact that the spirit of the river is still working and there's still hope. And that's why we're all here. Thank you, Petey. Love you, man. And good to see you.
Sorry, I'll back at you. I'll answer that question.
Come here, then. Get up here.
I think she
Do I need it?
I'll hold it.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, what Kari's referring to, we're seeing that picture back, you want to hold it? Back at Laverne and I'm sure her granddaughter or great-grand. Anyway, that's very important. That's what I want to carry on, but not in the going out and getting the sticks. I'm learning still, but with the canning, my grandkids, this year was probably the first time that I was able to feel, positive and kind of, knew what I was doing, and it was great. It's like that's something where I want to, carry on, where they could at least say, remember back in the time when Grandma showed us? I had, most of my grandkids there that day, and everybody was enjoying it. It was like a camp we had that I've always wanted. Now it's kind of like a relief seeing them, getting older and everything, kind of like to take the pressure off me and handing it down to them now. It's just like how Laverne showed, that picture of Laverne. Same thing, going out, taking kids, it starts from this age. And I don't care what anyone says, that's where the age you start. And it's in, bedded them by the time they get of age as a teenager. Keep them busy in positive things rather than not, and that's where it is. If you ever have kids or grandkids, great-grandkids, that's where it starts. Never say that you don't have anything, because there's something in you that you can carry on or have them carry on for you. And that's what it's all about. And we're, hopefully in this day and age, it's going to get better and better. And that's what we want to see, especially the young people, to have a positive, learning experience than just not being able to do anything or bored. There's always something in the native world that you can always be doing. And think positive when you're doing it, whether it's cooking, canning, or, whatever you're doing. Think positive and always have a good sense of humor and happy. Because if not, not saying that, just it keeps the spirit going. And on the river like Petey and them, that's an awesome relationship. I've known him as long as and he's been there, his family's been there. It comes from the Salmon River. We've known all of those lovely people and awesome, and still learning the relationships that I've, I learned, from them. It's just time, time over time. I'm a Hoopa tribal member, but I pretty much, know the Karuk Tribe more so. And my kids are Hoopa as well. And it's just the upbringing. You can always learn everyone's tradition if you have that time. Nothing, it's, time's too short. So take advantage of your kids, grandkids, and friends and family. It's important. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, that was, you know, it's amazing. I would just like to say, to put a little context to that, you know, like we haven't been catching a lot of fish on the river, and when you, it's almost like losing a relation when your acorns aren't there, or your fish isn't there, or something isn't there in your life. And we didn't catch a lot of fish for a long time, and it kind of was over our family. We're not going to have a chance to teach our children what we were taught about our fish, about our ceremonies, and things like that connected to the fish. They came back this year. We caught enough fish this year to give to our ceremonies, to give to our elders, to give to our community. More importantly, to stock up a few jars and have some smoked salmon for our family. But the most important thing, the intergenerational knowledge transfer that was able to talk about those fish, but in relation to fire. So now we're coming full circle right now, and you know, and that's the grind. We keep on doing what we do under the World Renewal umbrella. We keep on grinding. We keep on grinding. We don't expect miracles, but we depend on them. Okay? We'll keep on grinding, and we'll keep on grinding until that miracle happens. Then we know it happened. For what reason? Because of that sacrifice, that dedication, that selflessness to the greater community of the better of the good. Those are the things that our tribal community has been able to keep in place, no matter the atrocities that happen, the people who we meet and greet. This is what we have. Very fortunate to be able to have a platform like this and to have the people supporting this platform as we do march into the future, because Indigenous society cannot walk alone in this society, in the world we live in today, because of the atrocities that happened yesterday. Together, we can bridge that gap to make a future for all relationships, human and non. Yotua. Yotua, Petey, Yotua.
What should we do?
It's been a long run, brother. I love you, Petey. Pete and his family just gave me a jade circle. I'm a part of it. So that's very honored. And I'm honored here today, representing the people who walk before us, to the people who walk with us, more importantly, the people who walk after us. Thank you. Thank you, Petey. My head's too big.
I have a question.
There have been a couple meetings, me and him, the only brain in the room. I always like to remember myself with that.
I think we had a question.
Sorry.
Good. I had a question, yeah.
Yes, I've lived close to a river, the Mad River, for mouth of the river and I don't have really any connections along it. Do you think that's something that's like, you know, one of the things that's been kind of lost with how often our society is now, and that's important to bring back?
You say like I missed that somewhere.
Sort of like, you know, that I live near the mouth of a river.
Okay.
And I don't really have any connections along it or any with Indigenous or otherwise,
Yeah.
any connections. Or I don't even really, I never been to the headwaters or really the where the water comes from. And I don't think I'm alone in that. Do you think that's something that needs to sort of come back for everyone who lives along our local rivers?
Yeah, I think that each one of us
Have our own personal medicine, and whatever makes you that well-rounded person is important for you. And then if that connects into the greater good of the all, then you being healthy and well means a lot to the rest of the group. And then it makes you healthy and well, then you have to realize how that relationship's going to benefit the other people, the other things that are around you. You know, so that kind of opens up your mind to that thing. And you know, is it, you know, you're kicking around artifacts out in your yard, or you know, is there a burial ground out back, or is it just a pristine piece of property, or you know, so there's a lot of different moving parts there. I guess what I'm saying is that yes, it's important for all of us. If that's you feel like you need to be the headwaters, or you know, those are the things that I haven't necessarily did with all my spiritual places, which kind of bums me out sometimes. I see somebody else non-native doing those things. But at the end of the day, the interconnectivity of all of us, the health and wellness of all of us, is going to allow us to live successfully around each other the matriarchal way, rather than have to tear somebody else to have your lifestyle. So you have to be well balanced within yourself to be able to give to the community. And a lot of times you might not think you have the ability to give the community until you find yourself.
I can add to that, and then you have a follow-up to this too.
Sorry, I don't want to.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
But go on.
I was just going to say, I think absolutely that is, you know, that is what's, when I was referring to that we just don't talk about colonialism and genocide in the United States. It's something that even in Canada, where it's still also not talked about, there's been more formal, you know, acknowledgement and apologies, and so it's not a coincidence that you don't know. Most of us that are non-native, and everyone who's been raised and socialized in, you know, what we're now call Eureka or the United States of America, whatever, it's not, it's part of the need for erasure of what's happened is part of how colonialism has sustained and continues to sustain itself. So that invisibility, there's a wonderful book that I found recently written called Inherited Silence, Listening to the Land, Healing the Colonizer Mind. It's Louise Dunlap. She's a non-native person living in the San Francisco Bay Area who is writing about her own family history and the relationship with land. And I found it very, I found it useful for me in thinking about my process also. I grew up, you know, for sure, so much, you know, so ignorant still, and so, you know, that's, non-native people are, that's how the violence was happened, and it's how it's now continued to be justified, and so. Yeah, so but definitely that's a big part of the unsettling process, is to start recovering that and understand how our own families and our own communities are complicit in what's to be done next.
I have a more specific question about burns and creating open spaces with burns. That I learned from this presentation that it's for long-term fire mitigation and for the salmon and climate control. Are there also benefits forest and like the oak trees to having more open spaces created by those uses of fire? And yeah, I'm curious about that.
Yeah, there's it's definitely multi-generational forest, right? So you just can't, you're just not managing for the old growth trees, or you're just not, it's successional, so and then you have your grasses. So it's really becomes prescribed burns, cultural prescribed burns, or is it hazel? Hazel has its own prescription, right? Your acorn trees, your medicinal plants, they all have their specific tending. You have to tend them all a certain way. All I know is that most all of our culturally relevant plants need fire to repropagate. They need to repopulate through fire. So those are a lot of the things that modern science, Western science, is just now kind of starting to learn. And one of the biggest things, kind of problematic, is that once they learn from Indigenous science, Western science like to take that and then move on without us. So I have been very fortunate, and one of the things I was thinking on the way out here, that I'm very fortunate to have a person that is able to sit here and find her epiphany in her academic world and stay with it, even though it wasn't always glorious, right? To understand what is it really, rather than taking the highs without the lows. That's Western science. You like to go through and cherry pick everything and move out, right? But now we have true scientists kind of coming in and getting that feeling of the Indigenous culture and what it truly means. They'll never be able to feel it, but they'll be able to acknowledge it and respect it. And I think that's the best thing we're asking for folks, the private landowners, is not to feel like that is your calling, but maybe that might be somebody else's calling, and maybe how can you help them do what they need? Maybe it's somebody else that's not, maybe it's connected in your region that you go help with the fire out in the landscape, because if you're in a community, that might not be able to happen right away, but overall, the health of the overall community, fire up on the forest is going to be nothing but good. So I think that's just, again, it's your personal world where you feel comfortable, and then who you choose for your mentorship.
And I was going to highlight, just in further answer to that question, this is a drawing that's in the Karuk adaptation plan, which is all available online, showing a human-centered forest ecosystem. So most of us in biology classes, you're familiar with like the food web or whatever in the forest, but there's no people in it. But these people are here because their use of fire is what makes all of this system possible, from the open meadow that's good for elk habitat and keeping the conifers at a distance and all that kind of thing. So yes, it's good for the forest in lots of specific ways.
Will conifers choke out like other plants that you want if you don't burn them from time to time?
Yeah. I don't know if there's another question.
Yeah. Thanks for your work on bringing down the dams.
Oh, thank you.
I have a question about, from a biology standpoint, you mentioned inversion layers. There was a slide, inversion layers, smoke, cooling water temperatures. Curious what kind of data exists about that? In other words, when was that recognized? When was it documented? And is it actually being considered now during fire season, the beneficial aspects of lowering water temperature with smoke inversion? Is that?
That's a loaded question. I'll just say that in order for it to be on the management table in modern science, you have to have it proven. So it was proven, and I believe it was by a gentleman from the Karuk Tribe that did a study on spawning migration of the Chinook and the Klamath River. And yes, they did find out specifically a couple of degrees cooler that dropped below the thermal threshold of migration. So yes, that was proven. I'm not sure exactly when, by who, but that's definitely proven. So that's one of the questions.
And there, sorry. So this, I did pull up this diagram, shows some of the complexity of it in the climate plan, but this is an article Aaron David, Frank Lake, and Eli Asarian did, which is, I can email it to you if you want
Nice.
to email, if you want to email me, but there's so many parts of it. But yeah, there has been some preliminary work on it, and how it's being taken up, I don't fully know, but yeah.
And I'm not sure some of the other questions about in relationship to those fires. I know that years back, maybe a decade back, where they started letting cool burns occur on the Forest Service lands, and that has nothing but promoted that fire at that time of the year, because that time of the year we have the lightning strikes, and so basically they'd let them lightning strikes go, and so that was creating that inversion layer. And gradually, I'm not saying the fish are coming back because of that, but I'll tell you what, they're not dying because they're stuck at the thermal refugias, the creeks up and down the river. When the temperature of the river gets so hot they can't migrate. So what's happening now with that inversion layer, they're allowing them to sneak up the river, so to speak, rather than congregate in these big pools, get a disease like a common cold, pass it along, and then you're going to have a lot of dead fish. So the Forest Service lighting fires because for fish, I'm not sure if we're that far along yet, but I think there's acknowledgement in that area, and I think that fire, the management of fire, is definitely leaning in that area. Because we all know salmon is a keystone species for life over time.
I don't know if there's online questions too, but yeah, please.
Hi, my name is Susan Stewart. I work with the North Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board.
Oh,
And I particularly in my role, I do water quality permits for Caltrans projects. But I've worked with a number of people who are very much in support of removing the dams on the Klamath. You probably know Clayton Crater. But I wanted to share some recent meetings I've been in. And first of all, let me say I've been with the Water Board for about 10 years, and the change that I've seen in accepting and wanting to learn from the native tribes about using fire to manage the forest, and about recognizing the knowledge base there and how valuable that is.
Great.
I think has been really exciting. Just recently, in fact, last Thursday, I was in a meeting about a new permit that's being developed to address wildfires,
Okay.
and specifically some of the challenges. There's so many hazards that it doesn't fall within the permit timeline to get an emergency permit done. And so this is being recognized, and the Water Board's developing a new permit to address this type of emergency and water quality issue. One of the things that is being written into that permit is Native American consultation. Not only Native American, but with other affected peoples. But I was really excited to hear that, and excited to hear about where that could go, and all the new things it brings to the table as far as managing the resources. I was recently in October at a meeting for the last chance grade up near Crescent City, and there were members of several tribes there at the meeting. It was a day-long workshop, and many different agencies were there. The Coastal Commission was well represented, and it was suggested that the mitigation for cutting some of the old growth trees for creating a new highway to replace the highway along 101 that's been so problematic, that some of the mitigation for that could be education to tribal members in learning the science and managing the resources and combining those efforts. And that was very well received. I was really excited to see that.
Yeah, so it sounds like the state is kind of recognizing indigenous nations a little bit differently. Is that what I'm getting here?
Yes, I
So we've been doing this with the federal government for a while. Now the state is coming up and kind of like saying, hey, there may be something here. And yeah, I mean, I think that is the requirement as we move into the future. I think land management agencies are figuring out that indigenous science, indigenous perspective belongs in every management realm that we have. Social realms, educational realms, management realms, indigenous science. We have the ability to not only fix the world, we have the ability to come back and fix our own world. You know, so in a combination, while we're working simultaneously, that's what we're doing. And for the state of California to acknowledge that is some of the work that we did back with Cal EPA back in the day when I was Environmental Justice Task Force talking about these same issues with them. You know, so this hard work, the hard grind, these are the type of management actions that kind of often flow under the radar screen. So thanks for bringing that, you know, to the table today, because that's the hard work of not only what we do, but all the other indigenous advocates, because we're all, by design of the federal government, we're all on different cultural pathways to get to the same thing. Intergenerational transfer of knowledge. And so, wonderful work that you're doing, and wonderful work that the state's doing. So, you know, I hope we don't break our arms, patting ourselves on the backs, but I think that we got a lot of work to do, but, you know, I think we're getting to a place where we can get things done. And I want to thank you for bringing that to the table, but probably more importantly, for sharing that perspective, because I think that you believe in that perspective if you're sharing it. So thank you so much.
And I want to add, it's definitely wonderful in terms of the consultation from the state, and it would be wonderful as mitigation also if more people in your organization were more aware of the indigenous science, in addition to teaching the tribal youth, but have it go both ways. So there's to put something more on your plate, since it sounds like you're already committed.
I'm happy to share, and we have, I think it's monthly trainings for water board staff, where someone comes in and speaks and gives a presentation. So maybe that's something we could talk about.
So I just romanticize myself to death here. Just remember, I'm in Humboldt County and I'm from Siskiyou County, so a lot of these things don't happen up in Siskiyou County. But I think the state bringing it to the table might allow those things to happen up there in ag land, of learning how to manage the ag lands, the forest lands in combination. So I think this is that innovative concept that is needed throughout the basin and throughout the management community.
If there's questions online or how that works. Okay, yeah, good. All right.
They're a pretty big one over there too, huh, Ron?
Yeah, quick question, smaller scale, let's say. This past summer, my wife and my daughter and I were gonna go camp up at Nordheimer up on the salmon.
There you go. Now we're talking.
Yeah, and so when we got up there, it was after that, there was that storm, I forget what month it was, but at Nordheimer, we got out of the car, because I'm like, the water was chocolate milk. And so then we went up to Forks, and then it was coming in off the South Fork, so we ended up going up past Sawyers to Mules Bridge and camped up there. But I was just curious, do you guys know what the cause of that was? That something slipped out there or something, and that water was just brown as chocolate milk.
I'm spoiled. Anytime I have anything going on in the Salmon River, I look over at my partner over here, Petey. So, you know, I know that he definitely knows. I'm not, I just think that there's different fire activity up there. I'm not sure exactly other things than fire that would blow out Nordheimer. But, you know, Petey definitely knows. I know.
Yeah, that's all they.
You know, I just think that we've, you know, been having those type of things, those situations, not only up in the salmon, but they're happening up and down the river and associated with hot fire. You know, and I have a tendency to believe that they have the hot fires because usually when the river blows out, the people, the fishermen, the people who know the river know what is causing that. Unfortunately, I don't know that, and I need to know that better.
I'll say a last word. I didn't want to speak after Robin earlier, but I was going to say something to PD also and Geba. And that is just PD Rucker's how I came to the basin, really. I'd had others, somewhat connections, but you encouraged me to come down and do knapweed work, and met with Ron at that time. And when Sam and I got married 22 years ago, he played at our wedding. So just, yeah, thank you so much for coming out today. It's good. Thank you.
One other question, speaking of water quality and chocolate water, dams are, you know, notorious for impounding sediment, right? And so I'm just curious if what the expectation is, if you happen to know, or if you've heard people talk about when those dams are taken down, how they're going to deal with that big slug of sediment that's piled up behind all three.
Yeah, it's
You know what the plan is on that?
I don't know exactly what the plan is, but it's been studied to death.
Sure, yeah.
And I'll guarantee if it was going to have a really huge problem, we would have known about it by now.
Yeah, so
A lot of I'm not going to say it's going to be nice and delicate, but it's, you know, but what from my understanding, it's not a snow watershed driven system. It's a volcanic system. So you don't have so much erosion happening up in a volcanic system as you do in a snowpack system. So what I heard back when I was involved was that there's not that much sediment in comparison to what we think down here in the snowpack region, how much erosion it occurs. Just the volcanic ash up there is, I think, is minuscule in comparison to snowpack. I don't know, but I know they studied it, and I know there's information on that.
yeah, the Elwha, I think, is a good example, right?
Well, you know, I think that Elwha is a good example for a lot of different things. They're worried about, like right now, I think one of the worries is about spring Chinook, if we're going to be able to kind of revitalize that population. Look at the Elwha. They're going to go up and start doing their thing, but I think there are some other genetic things and barriers that are no longer there that promoted the spring salmon genes to survive or to be made. Who knows? But I think the Elwha put to sleep a lot of myths about recolonization of the river by salmon. All right. I would really like to thank everybody for being here today and having us a chance to kind of chirp at you for a while about, you know, the indigenous perspective of the Mid-Klamath, you know, in particular Karuk Tribe. But today we represent all the different world renewal ideology on the river because we're all about remaking the world, renewing the world every year. So with that being said, thank you for the people's land that we're on today. Thank you for Kari. Thank you for the family for allowing this to happen. But more importantly, we have a chance with this new governmental paradigm shift that seems to be occurring right now that is allowing Indigenous science to participate. The work that we've done is going to promote that. The work we're going to do is going to promote that. The work that we all do is going to deem if we have success or not. So thank you very much and for the opportunity, and keep up the hard work and keep up the love.
Thank you both for giving this wonderful presentation. Let's give them one more big round of applause. Thank you all for coming out to the park today to take part in the presentation. Feel free to check out the exhibits while you're here, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.